So how is the real estate market in Georgia and what is to come? As we approach the holidays, that is definitely a question that we are getting, and we are here to answer it for you today. And we've got a special guest to share their thoughts with you. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the channel where we love Georgia, Atlanta, and the people, places, and properties that make this place so special. I'm Stephanie. I'm with the ColeTeam here in Georgia. I've been a broker for over 20 years and excited to talk to you about the topic of the day. It's pretty much the topic of every day for us, but it is how is the real estate market? So there's a couple key indicators that we track very, very closely in our business. And we're gonna go over some of those data points with you now to help you get a clear picture of what's going on in our real estate market. And of course, help you with all of your decisions as you're planning your real estate future. Before I dive into those numbers, I wanna take a quick moment and introduce a guest to you. He is someone that's been working with our team for a number of years. We rely on him heavily for our clients for all of their mortgage needs. He's also got a wealth of information to share from a real estate and lending perspective. So without further ado, here is Naveed Bhurgri. He is with Atlantic Home Mortgage. We are so happy to have him. All right, let's welcome our special guest today. It is Naveed Bhurgri, and he is with Atlanta Home Mortgage. And Naveed, thank you so much for being with us today.
Absolutely, thank you for having me.
And Naveed's got the toughest job of all because so much has happened in the mortgage industry that has, I don't want to say caused, but definitely, maybe it has caused.
A little bit of stress.
a little bit of stress, but there's some good news on the horizon, and he's going to share that with us on a November update and kind of what you're seeing now through the end of the year. So I'm going to give this to you.
Absolutely. So as we all know, rates have climbed at an historic pace. The good news is most people in the industry feel that rates are going to come down, whether that's 2023, 2024. There is some reprieve on the horizon. Last week, we had a massive drop. The CPI numbers came out. They were significantly lower than analysts expected. Looks like inflation is starting to get under control, and that's what we've been waiting for. That's the catalyst we need to put that downward pressure on rates. And we had that last week. We were running above 7% for a 30-year fixed. I think as of yesterday, we were in the low to mid sixes, so that was a pretty significant drop.
That's great. Do you think we're going to see things? Don't you love this when people ask you, where's your crystal ball?
Right,
Do you think things are going to pop back over 7%, or what are any indicators out there?
It's tough to say. I think the catalyst once again is going to be inflation.
Sure.
So as the economic data comes out throughout the rest of the year, if it looks like inflation's staying stagnant or going the other way, then I do think you'll see some downward pressure on rates. Where do I know where they're going to ultimately end up? I'm not sure about that, but I do think we'll see some downward pressure going forward.
Gotcha. What are some of the more popular programs that you're seeing buyers really benefit from right now?
Absolutely. So one of the most popular ones, the 2-1 buy down.
Okay.
It's been around for since the history of mortgages, but it's really prevalent in this market.
Okay.
It addresses two of the main issues buyers are facing: affordability and that fear factor that's caused by uncertainty. The premise of a 2-1 buy down is, let's say, for example, the starting rate's at 6.25 for a 30-year fixed conforming product. With a 2-1 buy down, the actual start rate would be 4.25% for the first year. Second year, it goes to 5.25%. Third year, it's at 6.25% for the life of the loan. So it is a true 30-year fixed mortgage. The benefit is the payment difference at 4.25 versus 6.25 is significant. So it helps with that affordability issue. With the fear factor, it also helps, as I mentioned before, we do feel that rates are going to drop. So let's say you lock in at 4.25%. Once that rate goes up another percent, if we're right, then you're going to have an opportunity to refinance and get locked in at a significantly lower rate. If we're wrong and rates continue to go up, then as a buyer, you've still done very, very well.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That makes a lot of sense. Any other programs that you're seeing too, that definitely seems like a good option, especially for someone that might not be sure if they're going to be living in the area a long time. Seems like a good thing.
Absolutely.
And my understanding is, sounds like from what you said too, there's not an issue if rates, say in 6 months, look so much better and you want to refinance. There's no issue with that loan. You don't have, there's not a time period associated
Absolutely.
with it.
There's no prepayment penalty. One of the great things about that loan is the buy down funds go sit in an escrow account.
Okay.
Any portion of the funds that aren't used over the first 2 years are actually given as a credit towards a principal reduction when you do refinance. So it really offsets or limits the majority of the refinancing cost.
That's
and
great.
if you use it as an example, we're telling every buyer now is a great time to purchase. Just using examples, let's say you purchase a $500,000 property, leverage the 2-1 buy down, your start rate's 4.25%. If rates do come down like we predict, that's going to create a flurry of demand. When that happens, you're going to see the price of properties skyrocket like they did earlier in 2022. So if I'm a buyer, I'd much rather purchase at $500,000, be locked into 4.25, refinance to 5.25% a year from now, versus a buyer jumping in the market trying to time it a year from now and purchasing for 540, 550 and ending up at the same interest rate. I think a buyer right now has a great advantage in this market.
Right, that's exactly right. Kind of like what we were talking about earlier too. It's same goes for those buyers that are looking now that maybe were kind of, wanting to buy 6-8 months ago, and that $500,000 home then was, 575 or sometimes well over 6. So it's still at the end of the day a great price to be at, and you're not pressured with having to make a decision so quick. And of course, way overbid for a home. So,
absolutely. Yeah, we felt bad for buyers earlier this year, but I think they've kind of circled back around and they have a lot more leverage than they did in the past.
Definitely. So I think what I hear you saying, if you were looking for a home right now, what would you do?
I would buy.
I
would absolutely pull the trigger and buy.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And we want you to come back and kind of keep on this topic of rates, because it's so important. It's so important that our clients, know what's happening and what's on the horizon, and our sellers too. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Okay.
All right, cool.
So we're so thankful for the perspective from Naveed. I'm going to jump into some of the other key data points that we look at when we're trying to determine what is going on with our market that we think you will find of interest. One of the first ones that we like to look at is, of course, number of homes on the market, and then number of new homes that make up that number. So as you can see earlier in this year, we've talked about this before, the number of listings north of Atlanta, they were topping out just over 1,000. They held there for a couple of months. Then we saw that number rise pretty greatly, actually, to doubling that number in July. Now we're starting to see that number come back down, and we're just under 2,000. And I assume we'll probably be close to 1,500 by the end of the year. So the good news with this is we are seeing more homes on the market right now than we were seeing earlier in this year. Of that, the number of new listings that make this up has come down since July, and we are seeing fewer and fewer new listings as we approach the end of the year. This is really no surprise. We are just seeing a more normalized market. That is often something we see in the fourth quarter, where there's simply fewer homes that are coming on the market. So again, a more normalized market is happening. Another thing we look at is the number of expired listings. That was virtually non-existent earlier this year. In the North Atlanta market, where we're normally seeing around 2,500 homes on the market at any given time, it's very interesting when just 40 of those were expired listings earlier in the year, and now that number has risen to well over 100. So again, it's tripled, not a surprise, things are taking longer to sell. In fact, that goes hand in hand with another stat we look at, which is total days on market. Total days on market looks at from the day one of when a home is listed to the day that it goes under contract. It's not to the closing date, it's just to the day that it gets a contract. So again, earlier this year, like we've talked about in the past, we were seeing total days on market anywhere from 3 to 5 days, probably over a weekend, listing on a Thursday, selling over the weekend, being under contract by Monday. Not a surprise, that was the average. Then of course, once summer hit, once you were getting June, July, August, things were creeping up, doubling, tripling the total days on market. Right now, we are just under 25 days on market on total. Again, that is 5 times the amount of days on market earlier this year. I expect we will see that raise to over 30, if not 35 by the end of the year. Things are just simply taking a little longer to sell right now. And the last data point we always like to look at when we're looking at how the market is doing is the close price to list price ratio. So in other words, what is a home listing for and what is it selling for, and what is that percentage difference? It's great when we're working with buyers. It gives us perspective on what we might offer for a home, and then also for a seller too, of course, to just kind of get a firm understanding of what the market will allow or market value might allow for their home as they're making their plans. So earlier this year, we were seeing that number at 103 to 105%. 5%. So that means homes were selling 3 to 5% over list price. In many instances, it was much higher than this. Come September, it was the first time the average went under 100%, and it's slowly creeping down. Right now, we're around 97%. We're in November, and I expect it to probably end at around 96%. This is not a bad thing. This is exactly what we saw several years ago. That's about where the average always is, 95, 96% when we're looking at the North Atlanta market as a whole. So again, just another example of things normalizing. We hope you found this market update helpful. And of course, special thanks to our friend over at Atlantic Home Mortgage, Naveed. I know he's very happy to help with any of your mortgage related questions. And as always, if you or someone you care about is thinking about a move to Atlanta or the Atlanta area, we would love to help you. We do life in this area and we can help you do the same. Thanks so much.